It's back! How's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And after more than 5 months of nothing, Skyrim's Creation Club has finally received an update. And more content, if you will, available for purchase. Now, whether that's a good or bad thing, you can decide. The last time Skyrim's Creation Club was updated with new creations was way back in December of 2017. So with its first new releases in almost half a year, I was fairly hopeful that Bethesda was gonna really try and knock our socks off when I first heard that these new releases had finally arrived. But after playing for a few hours, that unfortunately does not seem to be the case, and the new releases are plagued with the same criticisms as those before it. And I can't say I'm not disappointed, though admittedly, there have been some improvements. In total, there were 5 new creations released on the store with yesterday's update, and I bought and played with all of them, so you don't have to. Therefore, in today's video, we're gonna go over each and every creation, cover what it offers and what it's worth, and at the end of the video, I'll offer my final consolidated thoughts. But without further ado, let's do further. The first release I'd like to go over isn't terrible for Creation Club standards, though admittedly that isn't saying much. For only 200 credits, or roughly $2, you can purchase the NYX Hound creation. What this does is introduce a new creature and potential companion to the game, known as a NYX Hound, or NYX Hounds. Those who have played through the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind will probably already recognize these bug-like creatures, and remember them for being particularly pesky enemies. Once you've downloaded and installed NYX Hounds, you'll automatically be given a quest to head over to Solstheim and meet with a dark elf named Revis Sarvani. Now, you may already be familiar with this character, as he existed in Solstheim even without downloading the NYX Hound mod, and normally can be found next to one of the few surviving Silt Striders in Tamriel. But now, he's been repurposed. Once you've installed the mini DLC, Revis Sarvani will also be in the company of a domesticated NYX Hound that he will sell to you once you meet with him. Now, it is very important to note that Revis has no new dialogue and offers no explanation behind how he came in the company of such an animal. You just walk up to him, ask to buy the hound, and it's automatically yours. And that whole exchange left me fairly disappointed. Your newly purchased bug thing will act as a companion of sorts, carrying any items you need and following you around. Though it is of absolutely no use in combat, so don't leave your weapons at home. And that's effectively all you need to know about your new friend. Otherwise, it behaves exactly like the pack spiders you can get in the Dragonborn DLC. Essentially, it's just a moving chest. I should point out that the mod will also cause random hostile NYX Hounds to spawn in the wilderness of Solstheim, though it seems to happen very rarely. And I can't figure out why these NYX Hounds are perfectly capable of combat and biting the hell out of me, but mine refuses to do anything dangerous. And that's about everything. Your weird companion thing and some new hostile enemies. Frankly, what you're really paying for, in my opinion, is the moderately cool-looking creature texture. That said, while it is fairly small in scope, this creation also has a pretty low price comparatively speaking. That said, I would still recommend against this purchase. Go buy a coffee or something. Next, going up in price a little, for 300 credits, you can purchase the new Shadowrun creation. Shadowrun was a unique two-handed weapon that made its first appearance in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion's Shivering Isles DLC. What was different about Shadowrun is that the weapon would actually change between an axe and a greatsword depending on the player's blade and axe skills. Well, it seems to have that property carried over into Skyrim, but we'll get into that momentarily. To get your hands on this weapon, or weapons I suppose, you'll automatically be given another quest to go to a specific location in Eastmarch's Hot Springs, where a shaded skeleton lies half buried and Shadowrun floats above him, changing between a sword and an axe before your eyes. But not so fast. Prior to being allowed to equip your discovery, you'll be attacked by a shadow of your own character that you'll have to defeat. Once that's taken care of, you'll be free to claim your prize. Shadowrun works a bit differently than it did in the Elder Scrolls 4. Rather than change between a sword and axe depending on your skills, you'll simply be able to manually swap between the two at the location you received it. Both variants, the Greatsword and Battle Axe, have unique mesh and texture, as well as emit a custom dark mist of sorts. The two choices are roughly identical in terms of stats, and are extraordinarily powerful. though the axe does do slightly more damage with 35 points to the sword's 34, though the sword has less carry weight and swings faster. Much like the first release we looked at, I don't feel as though Shadowrun is a particularly bad creation in terms of design or implementation. However, I wouldn't say it's worth the $3 Bethesda is asking for it. That's just a little too much in my eyes. I see it kind of like how my parents must have seen all the action figures I'd ask them to buy for me when I was little. I might purchase it and play around with this creation for a few minutes, maybe even an hour, but after that, I'm never gonna touch it again, so really, what's the point? Coming in at number 3 is a creation I was very intrigued to learn more about when I first saw its name, but you can probably guess what happened later on, considering my tone. Camping, yes, that's its name, Camping, for 300 credits, allows the player to build campsites all across Skyrim. You accomplish this by first crafting camping supplies at a forge, they're fairly cheap and easy to craft, just costing some firewood and leather, and then activating the camping supplies in your inventory once you've found an area in which you'd like to construct a camp. Your screen will then fade to dark, and when everything reappears, voila, you will have yourself a camp. Each campsite will have a small bed, a crate to sit on top of, and a fire pit that will allow you to cook a couple of meals, as well as emit some warmth if you're playing in survival mode. Additionally, campsites will also become fast travel destinations, which makes them a fairly nice tool to have. I wouldn't say $3 nice, but nice. However, you can only have one camp deployed at a time. Personally, I think thanks to the fireplace in bed, this mod does have some utility if you're going to be playing the survival mode creation put out by Bethesda last year. However, otherwise, there's not much value to this at all, as if you're playing normally, you can just fast travel to a bed and don't really need to use fireplaces in general. Furthermore, I don't know how I feel about this creation only being useful if you have survival mode, as you have to pay for that DLC too. I'd get it if this camping creation just complemented survival mode and was cool on its own, but honestly it's not. And there exists an abundance of mods that allow you to do the same thing with way more functionality. This is a big no from me. Fourth, we have Tundra Homestead for 300 credits. This creation adds in a new player home and was created by Eleonora, a popular Skyrim community modder known for custom home mods, so many were pretty excited for this one. The Tundra Homestead is located just east of Whiterun, which you'll notice isn't in a tundra, but hey, we're not nitpickers here. When you first approach the home, you'll notice a letter nailed to the door, telling potential buyers to speak to Whiterun's steward if interested in purchasing the property. Speak to Proventus Avanici in Whiterun, and he'll sell you the homestead for 7,500 gold. And give you the keys to this. You can also do this before becoming Thane, because to hell with your precious lore, I paid actual money for this. The interior of your new home is quite aesthetically pleasing. It's clear real attention to detail was paid, and there's even a few custom assets introduced as well. The first floor of the building is rather small. However, there's also a cellar beneath the home that reminds me of a hidden lair or bat cave, as it's loaded with places for you to put your stuff on display. Outside the house are a variety of basic crafting stations, a small garden, and some beehives. And that's effectively it. That's everything. While the mod is well put together, like everything else I've mentioned, except maybe to some degree camping, I would again be hesitant to recommend this to anyone, as I just don't see myself actually using this home in any playthrough, and it lacks any unique mechanics or special features I'd hoped would separate it from any normal player home. I don't feel as though the price to value ratio is as unbalanced as it is with the other two creations I've mentioned on this list, but unless you really love player homes, which I admittedly don't at all, this probably isn't for you. And finally, coming in at number 5 is what I would consider to be the best of the creations we got today. For 400 credits, which is also the most expensive, Adventurer's Backpack can be yours. Like the previous spot, this creation was also largely developed by a community mod author, this one known as Fading Signal. Despite its name, Adventurer's Backpack isn't just one backpack, but instead adds in 16 variations of the item available for the player to craft or purchase at vendors. The variants differ in model, color, and stats offered to the player. Each backpack will increase the player's carry weight by some measure, but certain unique backpacks, such as the Thieves Bag, will also offer some additional stat bonuses. The Thief version I just mentioned improves your lockpicking abilities. Likewise, the Hunter's Backpack makes you better with a bow. Some of the backpacks will even change their appearance based on the items that you're carrying in your inventory, which I thought was pretty cool. Overall, due to the level of variety, quality, and usefulness that this creation does introduce to the game, I think you can justify spending 400 credits on this, especially if you already have some saved up. Though I certainly wouldn't call this a must-buy, it's worth looking into if you're interested. And that's everything we got in the latest update. I noticed that with so many of the creations we saw, I kept asking myself, is that it? And it always was, which is never a good sign. Bethesda seems to have this problem, where they're able to produce what is good and decent mini DLC content, but isn't pricing it appropriately in my opinion. Some of this stuff is only worth 50 cents to me if I'm being blunt, but is instead being sold at 4 to 8 times that. It's because of that toy box analogy I gave earlier. I'm only gonna use these creations for maybe a couple of minutes, maybe an hour if that, and then chances are I'll never touch them again. Do keep in mind, I essentially play Skyrim for a living. So if there's anybody that should be getting value out of these items, it's someone like me. So when I'm not, I think that really says something. I wonder if it's just not profitable for Bethesda to lower their prices any further, as these creations are selling for a lower price than many we've previously seen, despite having similar levels of quality. We don't have any information on sales, but depending on them, maybe it's just not worth paying a small set of developers to work on these mini DLCs if they would only be sold for 50 cents each, which is, again, what I believe they're worth. It's not bad work, it's not lazy work. The people who made these creations in their offices did a decent job with them. It's just that the people who are trying to sell them aren't selling them at an appropriate price in my eyes. And it is very weird that after a 5-month hiatus, this is what we see released. Essentially more of the same. Perhaps people were taking breaks at Bethesda, working on other projects, or something got cancelled. But even out of a service as unpopular as this one, I expected a little more. But with that, we're going to wrap up. How do you feel about these releases? Are you as dark and as gloomy as I am? Or perhaps do you maybe have a better opinion of them? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.